That's weird. I didn't do that. Here we are again. Time for chapter 4. If you're just joining us, I am reading a chapter every week out of this book. If you want to read along, go ahead to the link in the description and you can find Shelly by MRC on Amazon, hardcover, paperback, Kindle. They're all available. Subscribe if you want to keep track of the book and where we're at, and like the video if you like the video. Now the good stuff. Chapter 4. Everyman. John slicked mayonnaise off his knife and across a slice of bread. He found the deli meat hidden behind the water jug and plopped slices of ham down. Next, he placed a pre-cut slice of cheese, half of a sliced pickle, the other half went straight into his mouth, and tomato slices. The top slice of bread dropped on top. Time for lunch. Again. As much as he appreciated Shelly's thoughtfulness in making him a sandwich, his tongue didn't appreciate the burnt taste left over in his mouth. John had placed his plate and phone on the table when his phone dinged. A text message from Shelly. 15 minutes apart, and she had started to miss him. Their different class schedules had them used to being separated throughout the day, but since their recent conflict, the longing for one another resonated more strongly with them. John couldn't explain why the young love feelings had reemerged after that disastrous moment, but he knew that he wanted his wife sitting next to him. I miss you too, he texted. Although if Shelly was there, she might feel bad that he needed to make himself a second sandwich. The broken plate incident had also heightened Shelly's sense of self-loathe, and she didn't need another excuse to disparage herself. He would show gratitude for her efforts. Maybe that would help her. Thanks for the sandwich. He placed his phone back down and thought while he ate. Thought about how Shelly had stopped painting. Thought about how little she smiled since the start of graduate school. Thought about how small things sent her following onto an emotional slip and slide that led into a dark hole with no ending. How much time should he wait until he proposed a plan for helping Shelly? An expected double knock came from the front of the apartment and the door swung open. Hey, how's it going, man? John recognized the knock as much as he recognized the voice. Turning around, he greeted his childhood friend with a nod. As usual, Lucas's presence immediately improved the atmosphere of the room. Hey, Lucas, how's it going? Good. Lucas swung himself into a seat next to John. You all right? Well, classes have started, so better than ever, John joked. I'm feeling that. Shelly at classes right now? Is she doing good? John took a bite of his sandwich as he thought about the answer. Swallowing, he said, She's good. Less excited about school than me, but she'll probably be fine once they start getting into their projects. Lucas knew a lot about Shelly and John, and when John had a problem, he told Lucas. But sharing Shelly's problems, it didn't feel like his place. Enough about me, John said. Dude, how was your honeymoon? Compared to some couples in Utah, Lucas and his wife, Amber, had married after spending much time dating. 2 years. Yellowstone was nice. Hot for July. Then we spent most of August with her family at their cabin in Idaho. Stifling a choke on some bread and forcing a smile, John said, That sounds so nice. Shelly and I still need to make up for our honeymoon. What did you guys do again? We spent 2 nights at a hotel in Salt Lake City. A staycation. It was cool, and we hadn't saved much with having a short engagement and all, but we plan to do something longer. Someday. Scooting his chair, Lucas leaned back. If you guys want, I can see if my in-laws have any open slots at their cabin. You could stay there and... He paused. It'd be free. Straightening up, John's eyes lifted as he did the math. 0 money, 1 free cabin, 1 sad wife. Thanks. That might be the perfect timing, actually. Text me what they say, and if it works out, I'll talk to Shelly. Cool. I'll text you. Or just walk up a couple of flights and tell you. John laughed and clapped hands with... No! An error! No! This is the biggest noticeable error so far. If you're following along, you know what it is. If not, I'm sorry. Zip! John laughed and clapped hands with Lucas, ending in a fist pound. Deal. It's gonna be so good living in the same complex again. Walking to campus. Like old times. Since age 8, John had relied on Lucas. They had both grown up 1 city away, in Orem. If John couldn't figure out things with Shelly, he might ask Lucas for advice later. If not, he could always call his mom and dad. They lived in Ohio now, and there was an hour time difference, but chances were his parents would be available to help. He stored these ideas in his backup files in case he needed them later. Speaking of which, Lucas said, I gotta get going. Checking the time, John made an oof sound as he stuffed the last third of his sandwich into his mouth, ignoring the twist in his stomach. Taking his backpack off the back of his chair, John slung it over one shoulder. Let's go. The two continued to talk as they walked up the same street Shelly had been on earlier. Unlike Shelly, they commented on the change in the mountains, the vibrant colors that covered them. Most of their conversation was filled with the latest funny videos John had seen on the internet, the latest songs Lucas had written, and when they could not think of any other jokes to tell, movies to reference, or music to praise, they walked in a comfortable silence. After they crossed the street to the duck pond, John moved his eyes across the grass and benches. His determination steadied as he planted his foot on the first step and stopped, unwilling to scale the steep steps until he completed his search. He spotted a young woman with auburn hair, focusing intently on her laptop screen. John whistled his best version of an affectionate cat call. Flipping her head around, Shelly softened at the sight of John. She rolled her eyes, whistled in return, and focused back on her online class. Pleased, John moved up the stairs with Lucas. You know, Shelly's pretty cool, Lucas said, running a hand through his wavy black hair. I hope she's doing okay. You know, since spring and all. John's breath stopped. Like Shelly, he tried not to think about that time, tried to avoid anything that might make him remember, which was easy to do, as long as he stayed in the student side of the college town and drove routes that went around the hospital. Thanks. She is cool, John said. He kept his face forward. Lucas brushed through his hair again and smiled like he was around a kid who just lost their dog. It's been like, what, 2 years since you guys got married? 2 years. Lucas's jaw dropped in exaggeration as he stopped on the stairs. Wow. He huffed. He started walking again. I guess that makes sense. Amber and I started dating in November, and now we've been married a month. Weird. John smirked. It goes by quick. The two made it to the first real break in the stairs. 10 steps worth of sidewalk. Man, it's been long, right? Like, no way that much time has passed by. I still feel like we're still kids bugging the vendors at the festivals for more food. Chili dogs. And funnel cakes. John took a moment to remember them. Even with a full stomach, his mouth salivated. I can't believe we're still here. I love Utah, but also, I gotta get out. John wondered where Shelly and he would end up. It depended on where he got a job after school. Maybe it depended on where Shelly got a job too. She had never wanted to work, but she had also never wanted to go to graduate school. John didn't mind either way. He just wished he had a better idea of what the future held. Enwrapped in his thoughts, he nodded indifferently at Lucas's comment. Do you guys know where you want to move? Nope, John said. I guess I'll find something here since I'll graduate a year before Shelly. But she kind of hates art school, so maybe not. Maybe we will move after graduation next year. Lucas took his turn with the indifferent nodding. You never know what will happen. I'm going for a music career, and all I do is school, and hang out with Amber. I don't think I've touched my Xbox since Christmas break. The flat portion ended, and the two walked up even more stairs. Really? Since our Battlefront binge? I've been so busy with the album, and I never should have taken summer classes before a wedding, Lucas said. But I guess now we're both responsible, married adults. Both tried to control their breathing as they laughed and climbed up the final set of stairs. John, I got a question for you. Sure, John said, taking a deep breath in. How did you guys do it? You and Shelly are great, but I can't believe you got married after 9 months. It's crazy. Amber and I could have never done that. I don't know, John said. They reached the top of the stairs and he clutched the railing. The metal chilled his hand. How did they do it? What did it even mean? Staying together wasn't too hard, but dealing with all their problems in a healthy and functional way? He wasn't sure he could claim they did that. I think it helps that we met through mutual friends, John said, trying to find the right way to describe his relationship with Shelly. Why, despite all the problems, it still felt right. Our friends all liked her, and I saw how nice she was to other people. She was always doing something good for someone, and we loved each other. I don't know. We talked a lot about stuff, and God seemed okay with it. That was enough for me. But honestly, I think we did rush it. Now we're trying to make up for that. We're trying to grow together. I think that's the biggest thing. You can prioritize each other and grow together, or you can get wrapped up in your own crap and grow apart. Lucas hummed. That makes sense. Yes, well, thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Instead of laughing, Lucas hummed again and his tan skin took on a hint of red. Do you think if you had a baby right away, would it have been too soon? Messed it up or... I'm sorry, I shouldn't even be talking about this. Letting go of the railing, John led the way across the campus road. It wouldn't be long until he arrived at the engineering building and would need to go to class. No, it's okay. Kids, he kicked an acorn aside. No, well, yes, sort of. I guess it's hard to know with our situation. John mentally shook himself and looked over at Lucas. Are you guys thinking about trying? I don't know. Lucas focused straight ahead as they approached the engineering building. When they arrived, John stopped by the steps leading up to the doors. Lucas walked backward as he said, I better get going. I'll see you later. See ya. John called back as he watched his friend turn around and walk away. Cracking his knuckles, John made his way up to and behind the glass doors. He felt off from the end of their exchange, but Lucas was gone and nothing could be done about it. The sun sank in through the many windows and eased into John's skin as he made his way to his next class. The strangeness from the conversation seeped away, and John began to think about the curriculum he had last studied for class. Shelly finished her online class and reviewed everything she had typed. No matter how easy the class, Shelly made sure to take notes. When she transitioned from the minor leagues of elementary school to the big leagues of middle school, she ingrained the habit of handwriting notes faster than any student, faster than any teacher. Work hard, live easy. That's the philosophy that Mrs. Lancaster insisted Shelly apply to her schooling, and she insisted upon it while unconsciously emphasizing one step over the other. By the end of high school, Shelly had plenty of paper notes to fuel a senior bonfire night, but New York City prohibited open fires, and she had no interest in her classmates' loft party. To celebrate her graduation, she recycled most of her work and dined at her favorite sushi restaurant with her mom, retiring to the apartment to share a late-night slice of gourmet cheesecake. Shelly happily moved on to university, and after years of pressing pens and pencils between her fingers, a subtle bump had formed on her middle finger. Suspicious of what the callus might foreshadow, she transitioned to taking notes on her computer. Osteoarthritis didn't run in her family, and it didn't need to. After reviewing each bullet point in her notes 2 times over, Shelly slapped her laptop shut and leaned back. The bench's metal etched lines in her back as she laid her weight into it, but she didn't care. A deep exhale left her lungs, and thoughts of school and class flickered out one by one until the only thought left was art. Art and the man, because when she thought of painting, she thought of him. John Singer Sargent. A painter from the 19th century, one of the 2 loves of her life. John S., as she referred to him, used the simplest brushstrokes to give the most immense amount of detail. John S. avoided obvious, distracting details and refrained from including anything but the most important elements. John S., in Shelley's opinion, portrayed portraits better than all painters. Growing up, Shelley had met many types of Johns. The ages have not failed to prove that American parents think there's no better boy's name than John. That, or they lack the creativity to think of something else. When she discovered John S. in a high school art class, it gave her a fancy for the name, but she had little interest in dating any Johns until university. Until her John. From the very start, Shelley adored the apparent coincidence that her husband had the same name as her favorite artist. Once, after a few dates, Shelley was caught on a whimsy. Filling in a paint by numbers with John, she teased him and said that he had big shoes to fill. He agreed and said he would do his best to follow in her steps, though he did not know if he could ever fit into her shoes. She nudged him for the joke, but spowled more than usual while she painted. That had convinced her. Her John was the best John, even if he couldn't paint. Still, she loved to study Sargent's work. Reopening her laptop, the battery in the corner turned to the color red. She had a horrible habit of forgetting to charge her devices. Using whatever time she had left on her device, Shelley pulled up an image of the portrait of Madame X. She practically had the painting memorized, but she had ceased to refer to it as frequently as possible, in case she forgot any details. A young, married, American-born, French socialite looks to the side, her pale hand resting on the edge of a dark wood table to her right. A sleek black gown dares others to recognize her beauty, to review the low, heart-shaped neckline, to react to the 2 jeweled straps barely holding it all up. Shelley thought about the Madame and what her life must have been like in France. During Madame X's life in the 19th century, many knew her by her married name, but the Madame's real name was Virginie Amélie Avegno Gautreau. Shelley thought of her as Virginie, the young woman who went to parties, socialized, and caught the attention of at least 2 artists who painted her. The woman who used henna to dye her hair and lavender to color her cheeks. The woman people knew. No wonder Sargent had chosen her. Virginie looked like beauty waiting for its home. The canvas. Portraits like this put Shelley in awe because of the secret stories they held. Originally, the portrait of Madame X had shown her dress's bright strap slipping off her shoulder. Parisians' criticism of the scandalous appearance overwhelmed John S., and he painted it over. If it had been her painting, Shelley wondered if she would have done the same. The pressure would have been hard to resist. Either way, John S. created a master portrait of an alluring woman. Maybe, Shelley thought, she could try to be that for John. Slip out of the pajama bottoms and into her silk lingerie, a set that had gone untouched for many months. Would she fit in it? Shelley tucked some hair behind her ears as she gazed into the tree's thinning branches. The same closet of clothes had fit her for the past 5 years or more. Of course she would fit in it. Maybe they would not fit as well or look as good. Shelley knew she could look better, be like Virginie. It was something her brain never let her forget. A ringing sounded, and Shelley picked up her phone. Hey, Amber, what's up? Sorry, I'm running late. A clash sounded in the background. Are you still good for our lunch date? Tuesday. It was Tuesday. So much had happened the night before, and with so little sleep, Shelley had forgotten about the lunch. Another mistake. Part of her considered rescheduling the group date. The greater part of her missed Amber. Their friends had been gone for almost a month. Shelley had skipped lunch anyhow, and as accomplished as she would have felt to skip a meal, she knew it wasn't healthy. Amber, I can't believe I have to tell you this, but I forgot about lunch and made John a sandwich already. We could probably still make it work, Shelley said. You don't have to. Seriously, John usually eats more than a sandwich for lunch anyway. He'll probably be hungry by the time he gets out of class. You sure? Amber said. Shelley gathered her enthusiasm. Yes, I'm actually still at the duck pond. Want to meet me here? Then we can go get the guys after their classes get out. If we can convince Lucas to abandon his guitar. Amber emphasized the word this way each time she said it. I know. I can't believe how many hours he spends playing that thing. Well, his music is my fitness instructing and your painting. Anyway, I'm leaving now. See you in 5. Shelly tossed her satchel on. See you soon. Guitar was Lucas's thing, like fitness was Amber's thing, but not like painting was Shelly's thing. Not anymore. Painting for hours? That no longer happened. Shelly walked over to watch the ducks in their pond, swimming in circles. We're all the same, huh? Shelly said to the ducks. She made a circle motion with her finger. That's what life had felt like. Every time she thought she was about to break out of the loop, she found herself thrown back in by the whirlpool of life. What was the point of it all? Why study art if she couldn't even bring herself to pick up a brush? For a short second, Shelly thought about quitting graduate school, trying to figure out where her life was headed. The year before, Amber had graduated from the neighboring school, Utah Valley University, with her physical science degree and obtained a personal trainer's certificate during her last semester of classes. Right after graduation, she began working at a local gym and taking on clients. Although Shelly did not desire to spend her day doing fitness at a gym filled with BO, she admired Amber. Instead of hesitating, she embraced what she wanted without fear. She went forward with what seemed right because she believed she could change if it turned out to be wrong. However, Shelly reminded herself that Amber's parents supported her choice. Shelly had her mom. One brown-colored duck began chasing another brown-colored duck in the pond. Their wings flapped against the water. Weren't female ducks supposed to act friendly? Shelly supposed it was just another odd outlier of nature. Amber and Shelly were outliers. On paper, they didn't make sense as best friends. Yet, while Amber preferred big group get-togethers and Shelly preferred isolation with a canvas and oils, while Amber scheduled back-to-back activities and Shelly scheduled a one-day consuming activity, while Amber could run from 9 until noon and Shelly could run if a goose chased her, while all these things differed between them, they had found a way to become the closest friends. Through John's friendship with Lucas, they had met, and through their mutual love for one another, they had become like sisters. Shelly might not have told Amber about all her troubles, but she told her more than anyone, aside from John, had ever known. Through John's friendship with Lucas, they had met, and through their mutual love for one another, they had become like sisters. The ducks at the pond did not do much, and Shelly grew bored of waiting and looking at the scenery. Grass, trees, and leaves dying. Those were hardly intoxicating. Circling to the front of the pond, Shelly leaned against the wooden railing and watched the people walking on the street. Human life. That freed her mind. That made her feel light. Hey! Shelly turned toward the voice. Amber burst with a vivacious smile, her arm waving in the air like an Olympic gold medalist. Sorry I'm late, Amber said. It's okay, Shelly said. I've been preoccupied, admiring the ducks. She didn't bother to face the pond again and fake it. Amber gave a hearty, yet feminine laugh that only she could pull off. Right, those are some pretty attractive fellas over there. Seeing Amber's knowing look, Shelly laughed a little. What can I say? It was the best. No, I'm sorry, I can't. Those 5 minutes were agonizing. Tossing her wavy milk chocolate hair, Amber moved toward the stairs. Her hair still swished at the small of her back, layered in near-perfect volumes and with a few natural highlights. It was unarguably one of her trademarks. I'm starving, Shelly. I swear 1 minute I'm fine, the next I want to inhale a hippo. Tripping over a crack in the sidewalk, Shelly stopped and rubbed her toe. Well, you're always exercising, so... Story of my life, I guess. Amber wiped off her forehead. The two came to the base of the stairs and Shelly exhaled. The most arduous, dreaded part of the day had come. When Shelly looked at Amber, it confirmed to her that only she faced the stairs with such fear. Most clients at the gym, whether hers or not, agreed that Amber was the best personal trainer, extremely fit and personable. She had lengthy experience in cardio, strength training, and human connection. Shelly imagined that Amber could run up unending sets of stairs. Thinking ahead, Shelly planned to maneuver the conversation so that Amber talked more and Shelly could at least breathe between steps. So, how was your honeymoon? They took their first steps up. Good. We spent a few days in Yellowstone, which was eventful, but super fun. And then we met up with my family in Idaho, Amber said, moving forward at her average pace, a pace far too fast for Shelly. Well, this was harder than Shelly thought it would be. The two had walked a quarter of the way up, and she already had to fight the urge to heave. How could she make Amber carry the conversation if Shelly couldn't suck in enough oxygen for her brain to think? Before a new topic came to mind, Amber spoke. So how's your mom doing? Amber asked, obliterating the silence. The mom conversation was never short. Shelly prepared herself with a deep breath and exhaled so harshly that a nearby leaf shook off its tree. My mom's doing great, I think, she said, taking pauses to breathe. She's working a lot, which is usually, I think she's happy. It's cool. How's she handling the whole art school situation? Is she more okay you didn't do business? I think she's happy that I'm at least continuing my education. Amber cast down her best sympathetic look. Somehow, the two had reached the top of the first stretch of stairs, and Shelly leaned against the newel post. Confusion and concern flickered in Amber's deep brown eyes. Are you okay? Amber asked. Throwing her head backward, Shelly angled her face to the sky. Doing great. She poked her thumb up into the air to support her previous statement. Amber stayed silent. Shelly wondered what her friend thought about her. The stairs weren't as hard for Amber to walk up, and Shelly figured her struggle both frightened and surprised her friend. Walking stairs wasn't on their hangout agenda. Shelly was not overweight, but she didn't look underweight. At the same time, her body also had little visible muscle. Speaking up again, Amber said, "Are you ready for the next set of stairs? They're shorter." Shelly glared at Amber, who immediately burst out laughing. Joining her friend, they walked onward. It took longer than usual, but the two ended up at the top. No more stairs, only faded orange bricked buildings. They walked through the weaving sidewalks on campus. Classes were ongoing, and many students were hiding in classrooms, while others were occupying benches, tables, and spots of grass. In less than 10 minutes, John's class would finish, so Amber trotted inside the engineering building to buy a snack. Shelly politely declined the invitation to join, but when Amber insisted on buying her something, she requested a smoothie. Waiting outside at a silver grid table, Shelly looked down at her light brown kids and examined their condition. Everything seemed untouched, aside from a little fuzz on the side. Tripping earlier might have caused that. Inside the window building, Amber had no contesting customers in front of her. She was already waiting on the side, cookie in hand, while an employee made Shelly's smoothie. Neither math nor biology were Shelly's thing, and she couldn't compute how Amber could eat cookies and have abs. Thinking about the cookie triggered Shelly's stomach. It grumbled like an internal earthquake. As she waited, she tapped her fingers on the table. A text came into her phone from her mom. "Thinking of you." Right, because Shelly had called her a few hours ago. "Will call later." That was nice. She supposed her mom really had been busy. The call later might go better, or it might not. Her mom might be calling because she's upset with Shelly. For what? Who knew? Or Shelly thought she should stop assuming the worst and anticipate there will just be a nice call with her mother. Or she couldn't stop the or cycle in her mind. A mental groan echoed in her head. Admittedly, Shelly needed human interaction. The semester started a week ago, but as usual, Shelly had isolated herself and still didn't know her classmates' names. Her friends timed their return from the vacation well. Socialization might be the stress reliever that would calm life down a bit. Caught in thought, Shelly hadn't noticed Amber or John. Both were chatting as they walked toward Shelly. In her hands, Amber held 2 cookies and a smoothie. Shelly hoped one of those cookies wasn't meant for her. "I got you a cookie." It was. Shelly tried to keep from showing her disappointment. "Thanks," and failed. Still, she accepted the cookie as Amber handed it to her, her friend's smile a little less natural than from a few seconds ago. There were a few reasons Shelly treated her body with such restrictions. She knew she was in the average healthy weight range for her age and height, although she worried they gave a pretty big range for that. And who knew how long she would stay that way? Not to mention, in the 21st century, average was overweight. She had watched her mother stand in the mirror and pinch her own sides, calling them pudgy. She knew that average could not suffice. As all 3 of them walked away from the engineering building, past other orange brick buildings, Shelly handed her cookie to John. "Do you not want it?" he whispered. Instead of causing concern, she tried to play it off as generous. "I want you to have it," Shelly said. Putting his arm around Shelly, John thanked her. Even with the cookie off her hands, Shelly's thoughts continued. She questioned if average was even an accurate way to describe herself. Reaching to the back of her neck, she grabbed a clump of hair and braided it over and over. John had made her donate their scale. She hadn't weighed herself in over a year. So much could change in that amount of time. The other day, Shelly had thought she seemed a little softer, a little rounder. With no definitive number to classify herself, Shelly lived in a house of hip-dip horrors. Were they imagined? She would never know. Ensuring she didn't get worse, Shelly decided to do her version of playing it safe. Control more of what she ate. Cut out food that could carry negative nutritional effects, and, of course, eat less. Much less. Tossing her braid down, she untangled it and textured her hair with her hands. She caught John watching her hands and dropped them to her sides. She stopped herself as she realized she had looped from bad to almost good to bad again. Refocus on the good, she told herself. As stressed as she felt, eating food was good. Minutes ago, Amber had gone inside the music building, the only one new enough to have sleeker architecture and the best change of all. Red brick. John had spent the time waiting and thinking about how to approach Shelly. Enough time had passed to make him wonder if it was too late to talk to her about something serious. He decided to try. "So, has your scalp been bothering you?" John asked. "Huh? No?" "Well, I noticed." A smile burst onto Shelly's face. "Let's talk about it later." They said no more. Their friends returned quicker than the two had expected. The time for talking had passed, and John would have to wait longer. Lucas and Amber possessed the area around them as they walked out. Together, the newlyweds seemed as if they were an unstoppable force. Walking with his usual charisma, Lucas took his strides with ease and confidence. As he came down the pathway, his shoulders were square and relaxed, like nothing bothered his mind or back. Each step Amber took seemed to raise her stature and thrust her presence forward, and yet, when she smiled, she had a welcoming presence that intimidated, like the mother next door that the other neighborhood moms envied. The one with fresh-baked cookies, the perfect husband, and the perfect post-pregnancy body. The two held each other's hands, their arms wrapped up together. Though neither Lucas nor Amber were perfect, John idolized their relationship. He respected how much they loved one another, and he observed their in-sync movements. University did not make it easy to thrive as a couple, but they seemed to have done it. Bad news, guys, Amber said. We're going to need to reschedule. Lucas put his hand on Amber's shoulder. That's my bad. I thought we were doing dinner for some reason. To be honest, John said. I didn't even remember we were doing lunch until I ran into Amber. The two of them laughed. Okay, Amber said. Next time, I'm sending a group text. If you want, we could do dinner tonight, Shelly said. We don't have any plans. Yeah? Amber said. That'd be great. We could go someplace downtown. Downtown. John couldn't remember the last time he and Shelly had gone on a date there. He couldn't remember the last time they went on a date. He'd really let that ball drop. That's something he'd have to do more of, once he figured out how to help Shelly. They said goodbye to Amber and Lucas as the two headed back into the music building, and John and Shelly headed back home. Twirling the straw in her cup, Shelly asked, Do you want my smoothie? I'm okay. You should have it. John recognized Shelly's feelings. While her face concealed them well, her hand gave her inward contemplations away. It reached toward the back of her neck. Before the scratch came, John kept his face smiling as he reached for her hand. His smooth clasp onto Shelly made it seem as if he only wanted his fingers to intertwine with hers, not that he was preventing her minor self-harm. Drink up, he said. Lines traced the bottom of Shelly's eyes, her hair twisted and flew out at its ends, and her smile, missing. As John reflected on her condition, his foot slipped off the curb, and he stumbled into a parking lot. Shelly continued to stare aimlessly. Stepping back onto the sidewalk, John summoned all the emotional strength he had. All he needed was some gumption. You need a haircut, missus, he said. This disturbed her dazed state. Shelly tucked her hair behind her ear as she turned to John. What? Hello, welcome back, John said. Looks like I finally caught the attention of the prettiest girl on campus. The prettiest girl on campus who needs a haircut? Ha, what am I gonna do with you? Shelly rolled her eyes, but John could see she was pleased. I could think of a few things. John tried to grab Shelly by the waist. Shelly gave him a soft push back into the parking lot. But you really think I need a haircut? My hair barely reaches my shoulders. John pulled her down into the lot with him, trying to think of a way to save the joke. Shelly, short hair is hip. In the eyes of the world, your hair is outrageously long. John realized she might take the joke too seriously and start to stress. But no, I don't think you actually need a haircut. Shelly giggled. Whether studying traffic patterns for school or playing a board game, John usually approached situations with logic. When he approached them as absurdly as he did in this instance, Shelly relished in the silliness. His nonsensical humor had no conclusions or connections, but it made her laugh more that way. Hip, Shelly said. You're sounding like an old man, John David Anderson. He shrugged and moved on to his real concern. Are you doing okay? I noticed the scratching. Hair grazed John's face as Shelly whipped her head to the side, checking around. No one's around, John said. I just want to make sure you're doing fine. The cup in her hand was still full. You should really drink that. I'm fine, I promise. I'm just not hungry. They passed by a trash can, and Shelly tossed the smoothie in. End of chapter! Woo-hoo! Next week, we'll be reading chapter 5. Yay, wild. And we're going into February. Yay, also wild. Thanks for joining. Again, subscribe, like, read along if you want. I hope y'all have a great rest of your hour, maybe a great rest of your minute. And a great rest of your day. Bye!